Heavy downpours hit South Korea's southern regions with Gwangju and Jeollanam-do province, reporting damages of flooding. Heading into the second half of the year, South Korea's economic policy will focus on the following: boosting exports and investments, stabilizing prices, and future planning. Starting today, South Korea adopts the global standard system for counting age, abandoning its age counting system where you're already 1-year-old upon being born. Good afternoon. The southern parts of South Korea were hit by heavy downpours overnight. The city of Gwangju and the surrounding Jeollanam-do province were among the hit hardest, with multiple reports of damages. Our Song Yoo-jin reports.
On Tuesday, heavy rain exceeding 200 millimeters an hour fell on southern regions of South Korea, leading to flooding. In Gwangju, there was rainfall of 240 millimeters an hour, and the city saw the most damage from flooding, while Namhae Gyeongsangnam-do province saw 260 millimeters per hour of rain. In Hamgyong Jeollanam-do province, a woman in her 60s was reported missing on Tuesday night. The fire service is currently searching for her around the river area. To prevent any loss of life on Wednesday morning, the fire agency activated its Central Emergency Rescue Control Team. The team is a task force created to coordinate emergency rescue systems. It urged residents living in areas prone to flooding or landslides, such as coastal areas, rivers, and valleys, to evacuate promptly and prioritize their safety. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's economic policy in the second half of the year will focus on boosting exports and investments, as well as stabilizing prices. That's according to Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho during an emergency ministerial meeting on Wednesday, who said the goal is to improve economic vitality and stabilize public welfare. He also said preparation for the future will also continue by addressing issues including South Korea's low birth rate, aging population, and economic security. Boosting the food industry was also discussed with the aim of increasing the value of food exports to $15 billion by 2027. For the first time in 13 months, South Korean consumers have an optimistic perception of the nation's economy. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the Composite Consumer Sentiment Index rose by 2.7 points from the previous month to 100.7 in June. This marks the first time since May 2022 when the index is higher than 100, meaning more consumers are optimistic than pessimistic when it comes to the economy. It is also largely attributed to the increased face-to-face activities and a slowdown in inflation rates. The index has been steadily rising for 4 months. South Korea recorded its lowest number of births and marriages for any month of April this year. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the country's birth rate plummeted to just over 18,000 in April, down almost 13% from the year before. This is the lowest figure recorded for the month since data was first compiled. The number of marriages also hit an all-time low for any April, with some 14,000 couples tying the knot. And with the number of deaths going above 27,000, the population saw a natural decline for the 42nd consecutive month. Starting today, South Korea is scrapping its unique way of counting age as it adopts the global standard system. That is going to make all South Koreans younger by at least 1 year. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
In South Korea, it is often customary to ask someone their age even if you're meeting them for the first time. And if the other person is older, you suddenly treat them with more respect. Just minutes into the conversation, a hierarchy has set in.
There's something called the 3 fundamental bonds and 5 constant virtues in Confucianism. And this has led South Korea to have a culture that differentiates people by age and respects someone if they're older.
And the peculiar one-of-a-kind Korean age system added more confusion to a society that already heavily cared about a person's age. So here's how the system used to work. When you're born, you're already 1 year old because the amount of time you spent in your mother's womb counts. You age another year in the new year. One extreme example is when someone is born on New Year's Eve. Just a day after being born, she or he is already 2 years old in the South Korean age system. Another common issue took place when someone traveled overseas for study or work. For instance, a South Korean person could say they were 18 years old when in reality they were 16 in that country. In some cases, they could face legal liabilities for saying they were an adult when in fact they were actually minors. An official at the Ministry of Government Legislation told Arirang News why the government decided to make the change starting June 28th.
There were people who complained about confusion when communicating with foreigners. By using the global standard age system, South Korea has taken a step closer towards better communicating as a global citizen.
The director also said the new age system could help abolish some old habits of having to obey someone who is older than you.
In a classroom, there could be students that have age differences of up to 2 years. But they probably won't care too much about ages because they are in the same grade and become friends, which would help slowly abolish the hierarchy culture.
The ministry added when people get used to the system, it will benefit society in the future by removing unnecessary confusion. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Japan's release of wastewater from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant is apparently imminent as the country begins final stage preparations. The IAEA is also expected to release its final report on the safety of the wastewater, deemed a critical stage in getting international consent. Jin reports.
Despite concerns from several nations, Japan is pressing ahead with plans to release wastewater stored at the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean, with a start date imminent. The water became contaminated following a meltdown in 2011 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant caused by a massive earthquake. Japan has since then been working on plans to treat and dilute and release the wastewater through an underwater tunnel under the watchful eye of the International Atomic Energy Agency. On Tuesday, the Tokyo Electric Power Company completed a test operation of the roughly 1 kilometer-long underwater tunnel through which the treated wastewater will flow for the next 30 years. And starting Wednesday, the country's Nuclear Regulation Authority will start a 4-day overall inspection of the plant, after which a certificate of examination will be issued, the final green light for the water release. Japan does still need to wait for a final report from the IAEA on the safety of the wastewater, which is expected early next week. But no challenges are expected, as the IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi already stated in April of 2021 that Japan's chosen method is both technically feasible and in line with international practice. The advanced liquid processing system, which is used to treat the water, removes most of the radioactive substances in the water except tritium. The final dilution process at the plant will lower tritium levels to below 1/40th of government standards before the water is released into the ocean. One last hurdle standing in the way of the Japanese government's call to begin the release is local fishing communities that have been staging fierce protests, not only over concerns about safety, but also damage to reputation. Jin, Arirang News.
South Korea is now back on Japan's list of preferred trading partners 4 years after its removal. This comes just 2 months after Seoul made the same move for Tokyo back in April. Shin Ha-young has the details.
It's taken about 4 years for the trade dispute between South Korea and Japan to be resolved. According to Seoul's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the country will be back on Tokyo's whitelist of trading partners for the first time since 2019. On Tuesday, the Japanese Trade Ministry decided to reinstate South Korea as a Group A or whitelist nation, which will take effect starting July 21st, giving Seoul benefits from simplified export procedures. Back in July 2019, Japan placed export restrictions on 3 critical industrial materials used by South Korean companies to manufacture chips and displays following a ruling in South Korea regarding reparations for wartime forced labor victims. It also removed Seoul from its whitelist, triggering a strong backlash. In response, South Korea filed a complaint to the WTO alleging discriminatory actions contrary to the world body's rules. The latest decision comes amid a move to improve bilateral economic relations. Following a summit between South Korea and Japan in March, Tokyo lifted export restrictions, prompting Seoul to respond by dropping its WTO complaint and placing Japan back on its whitelist. After Tokyo's decision on Seoul's trade status, procedural convenience is expected to be enhanced for Japanese companies exporting strategic items to South Korea. Group A countries are also immune from a catch-all regulation, a screening system for exports of parts and materials that could be used for military purposes. Seoul's Trade Ministry welcomed the move, saying that trust between the two countries in export controls has been completely recovered. It also added that it will cooperate with Tokyo on other bilateral and multilateral export control issues. Meanwhile, South Korean companies anticipate a positive impact on supply chain stability, particularly in the chip industry. They also expect the resolution of uncertainty in the economic relationship between Seoul and Tokyo, leading to an expansion of exchanges between the two countries. On the other hand, some expect that restoration to the whitelist will have little or no significant impact on the industry, as the country had already diversified its supply chains in response to Japan's export restrictions. 신하영, Arirang News.
The International Olympic Committee is planning to invite North Korea to the 2024 Paris Olympics. Voice of America reported on Wednesday that the IOC will invite the North's National Olympic Committee to the Games, but it did not say whether the regime has reached out about participating. Last week, Pyongyang's foreign ministry released a statement hinting at the North's intention to take part in the Paris Games, saying its athletes are training hard for international events like the Olympics. And the North will be participating in the upcoming Asian Games in Hangzhou, China. The IOC previously suspended North Korea from competing in the Beijing Winter Olympics after it declined to send athletes to the 2020 Tokyo Games due to concerns over COVID-19. Belarusian leader Lukashenko has confirmed Wagner Group chief Prigozhin is now in Belarus following a short-lived insurrection against Russia. Lukashenko says the troops are welcome to stay in his country. Lee Seung-jae has more.
According to Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin arrived in Belarus after leading a brief mutiny against Russia. A private jet owned by Prigozhin was reportedly seen landing in Minsk on Tuesday morning, with aircraft tracking site Flight Radar 24 confirming that the aircraft had landed in Belarus. The news comes after the Wagner chief was exiled as part of a three-party deal between Russia, Wagner, and Belarus. The Belarusian leader also added that he convinced Russian President Vladimir Putin not to destroy the Wagner Group and its chief. Meanwhile, Moscow announced Tuesday that it had closed its criminal investigation into the armed rebellion led by Prigozhin, with no charges to be handed to any of the participants of the weekend insurrection. According to the Federal Security Service, its investigation found that those involved in the incident ceased activities directed at committing the crime. Despite President Putin branding those involved as traitors, the Kremlin promised not to prosecute Prigozhin and others after the mutiny ended on Saturday. In Russia, anyone found guilty of mounting an armed mutiny faces a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. With the possibility that the Wagner mercenary group could regroup in Belarus, nearby countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, which are close to the Ukrainian-Belarus border, as well as Poland, seem to have no choice but to pay close attention to any movements by Wagner. While Belarus has made it clear that it has no intention of participating in the war in Ukraine, watchers say it's difficult to predict how the situation will change now with Wagner and its chief in the country. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Two South Korean nationals were shot in Mexico Monday local time and are in critical condition. According to an official from South Korea's foreign ministry, the two victims in their 30s were brought to a local hospital after the shooting in Toluca, 40 kilometers west of Mexico City. The two were on a business trip to Mexico and were reportedly attacked as they were leaving a bank. Seoul's foreign ministry has asked local police for a thorough investigation in order to capture the culprits. A robot now takes a new challenge as it is about to debut as a conductor for the first time in South Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung went to rehearsal and caught the moment of its unveiling.
Can a robot replace a conductor? It all begins with this simple question. On the National Orchestra of Korea, in association with the Korea Institute of Industrial Technology, will be looking to provide the answer when a conducting robot named EVA-6 leads an orchestra for the first time in South Korea on June 30th. Expectations were high at Monday's rehearsal, and as EVA-6 began its performance of Horse Thumb, composed by Mevriva, all eyes were on whether the robot would function as a huge metronome or more like a real-life conductor. The highlight of the rehearsal was the performance of Kam, an improvisational piece between the human conductor Soo-yeol Choi and EVA-6, who both lead the orchestra together. Conductor Choi directed orchestra members to play music at the exact moment he believed to be right, while EVA-6 helped him to maintain the beat and rhythm.
This piece lets you experience the process of completion and interaction between performers and conductors. The actual notes are not crucial, but you can see the communication between them.
Conducting robots, such as Japan's Ashimo in 2008 and Switzerland's Yumi in 2017, have already astounded the music world, and the Institute has also devoted years of effort to developing the sixth version of its humanoid robot ever.
We focus on humanoid robots resembling humans to enable effective communication, as future robots aim to assist us in daily life. Conducting itself needs rapid light-speed gestures, prompting efforts to resolve this issue in response to the National Theatre's proposal.
According to the composer of Kam and the robot's co-conductor, EVA-6 is not actually conducting, despite its superior accuracy and rhythm compared to humans. They pointed out EVA-6's inability to listen as its major weakness.
I believe EVA-6 is more of a conductor-performer than a conductor, as it guides and performs gestures, while the performers respond through listening, confirming, correcting, and interpreting the music to create their desired expression.
The question posed by EVA-6 about a future society where people coexist with robots is clear. It is possible for art to expand in a realm that was once considered exclusive to humans. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Ukraine, 4 people have been killed and over 40 wounded in the eastern city of Kramatorsk following a Russian missile strike that hit a restaurant. Eyewitnesses say the restaurant was struck while it was holding an event for 45 people. Nearby apartment buildings, cars, and a post office were also damaged in the attack. The attack has been condemned by the United States, with a White House spokesperson calling it a part of Russia's brutal strikes against the people of Ukraine. The missile strike comes amid ongoing accusations that Russia is targeting civilians. Kramatorsk has been hit multiple times by Russia, including a strike on its railway station in April 2022, which killed 63 people. Air quality warnings are being sounded in parts of Canada and the United States Midwest due to heavy smoke from Canadian wildfires. Cities including Chicago and Milwaukee, as well as regions in Michigan and Ontario, registered air quality index levels above 200 on the 500-point scale. Anything above 200 is considered very unhealthy. Chicago on Tuesday even ranked worst in the world for air quality, albeit briefly. Children, the elderly, and those with breathing difficulties have been urged to reduce time spent outdoors. Canada says it is having its worst wildfire season on record, with almost 3,000 wildfires already this season and almost 500 still burning. Smoke has spread through much of North America and has even reached parts of Europe. Now, a painting of a possible ancient ancestor to pizza has been discovered in Pompeii. Archaeologists said on Tuesday they uncovered a 2,000-year-old fresco during digs this year next to a bakery in the ancient Roman city. The painting appears to show a round flatbread on a silver tray alongside various fruits. The discovery was made about 23 kilometers from Naples, considered the birthplace of Italian pizza. But although the picture bears a remarkable likeness to the modern dish, it doesn't technically qualify as a pizza because it lacks some of the necessary ingredients, including mozzarella and tomatoes. And finally, a painting by Austrian artist Gustav Klimt has been sold for $108 million, breaking the record for the most expensive artwork ever auctioned in Europe. The piece, called Dame mit Fächer, was sold on Tuesday after a 10-minute bidding war at an auction hosted by Sotheby's in London. It's the last piece that Klimt painted before his death in 1918. The previous European auction record was set in 2010 when an Alberto Giacometti sculpture was sold for $104 million. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The monsoonal front that dropped heavy rain on southern parts of the country has eased off, but Jeju is forecast to see more rain into this afternoon. The rest of the country will see 5 to 40 millimeters of passing rain, along with thunder and lightning during the day today. Heavy rain alerts that were issued in Jeollanam-do and west of Jeollabuk-do province have been lifted, but a heat advisory remains in place for parts of Gyeongsang-do and Daegu, with temperatures to approach 33 degrees, and feels like temperatures could be higher with that high humidity. Seoul tops out at about 28 degrees, but hotter in southern regions. There is a very good chance more regions will be a tropical night tonight. Meanwhile, air quality will be decent nationwide all day today. The monsoonal front will travel up north again tomorrow, dropping nationwide monsoon rain. Central regions are forecast to see heavy rain tomorrow. Meanwhile, Jeju Island will see rain into next Monday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.